to be a quick tutorial on dealing with rust in the metal fuel tank of the D3. We'll go over some steps. There's a couple ways you could deal with the rust in the tank of those cats. One would be to drain the tank completely, get all the fuel out of it, and try to get a vacuum cleaner, like a wet vac, in there and try to vacuum up all that rust and get as much of it out as you can. But what happens is that rust builds up on the pickup tube on the bottom of the tank, and it starves it for fuel. What this is right here is a pump, a fuel pump my brother devised, and it just has a vacuum tube that you can stick down in it, and then it's got another return line you put right back in it. You can vacuum the rust out of it, and then he just filters it through that. It's not my design. My brother's had to deal with this, and I'm just following suit. It's easier than draining the tank. Once you get a bunch of the rust out, it seems to last for a pretty good while. Now we'll go through some procedures on how to quickly get this thing bled and get it running again. We're going to need to get this left side cover off to access the fuel pump. We're going to use a hand vacuum pump to actually pull the fuel up. So on the rear of the dozer, you'll notice that metal fuel tank. And what we're doing is we're going to look inside at the sediment bowl, which there's the sediment bowl. If you're having a rust problem, the first thing you're going to notice is on the sediment bowl, it's not going to want to drain correctly. So when you go to drain it, that whole bottom will be full of rust. When it draws fuel from the tank, it draws it into the sediment bowl, which is pretty much for it's mainly for water and small amounts of debris. It's got a little float in it, so when it floats up to that red line, you are supposed to drain it. Rust issue, you'll notice it probably won't even drain. That whole petcock will be full of rust. So that right there is the fuel shut off, and that is fuel from the tank. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that fuel line off on the right, and we're going to actually blow air back through it, or try to draw a vacuum back through it. One way or the other, we need to get fuel coming through that into that sediment bowl. And that other line goes up to the fuel pump, which we'll go look at that now. So on the side of the fuel pump, you can see the primer valve right on the left. You'll unscrew that and plunge it. I normally take a little bit of oil. I use a little bit of Croil mixed with oil and spray it down in there. I use a lot on this dozer, but that line right there is the line we just looked at coming from the sediment bowl. So we need to draw a vacuum on that and see if we can get fuel up to this pump. And you'll notice that it goes up to that fuel filter. I do not have that filter. I need to change it. I'm going to get the number off of it. It has a NAPA filter on it, but I'm going to get that. I want to get a couple of those filters today. I've not been having a problem with this dozer, and it's all of a sudden just starting to strike me. So I'm going to siphon the tank out and try to finish up the job that I'm doing right now, which is only another hour. And then once I get the dozer out of here, I'm going to I'll come back and redo this job with a new fuel filter. So we'll do that now. We're going to take that line off and see if we can't get a vacuum drawn on that. I didn't have to re-sweep the tank this time. I swept the tank last night when it quit on me. I spent a couple hours sweeping it, and I thought I was going to have to do it again. There's probably a little bit of residual in there, and that's what stopped me up. I ended up just blowing back through that line again. You can't get it all out. With any luck, the mainstay of it's going to go into the sediment bowl. And I wanted to show, if you have an issue getting that sediment bowl off with a large pair of like pliers, get you one of these oil filter wrenches right here. It's a pair of oil filter pliers. It works excellent. It'll get right up on that. At least that's what I use. So, and it grabs. It's got little teeth in it to grab right a hold of it, and it's perfect. So, I had that off last night. I had it all cleaned out, and all I did this time, I didn't show it. I just blew back through that line. But the idea is that line down there, to not wear out that pump right there, use a vacuum pump. I have a hand pump right here, but if you have one of the air actuated vacuum pumps, they work even better. That's what I used last night. I have one of those as well, but I had it up at the house. So I'm out in the field now, so I'm working with what I got. But and you want to try to get as much fuel up to that pump as you can before you try to start working that plunger. That plunger, once you have fuel up to it, it should only take 3 or 4 hits. Pump it 2 or 3 times until you feel pushing. Then go start it, and when it dies, come hit it about 3 or 4 more times, and you should be good. For me, it only takes about 5 or 6 plunges, and it's running. So I got it running. I'm gonna get her put back together, and I'm gonna finish up this dirt work here. I'm in the middle of repositioning this crick. I'm pushing this crick over away from my party house, so I've got a little bit of a mess, but I won't here in about an hour. I'm going to get this pushed and be done.